Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. This is Engadget's continuing live coverage of CES 2021, the online-only edition, the digital edition, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're doing. Special thanks to Devindra Hardawar and Sony America President Mike Vasula. They just had a great chat. But we're now getting to the point in the day where we like to take a look back at the announcements that have happened so far and just kind of give you a sense of where we are in the show right now. And to do that with me today, we basically brought out the A-team. We've got Engadget Editor-in-Chief Dana Wallman, Managing Editor Terrence O'Brien, and from the West Coast, Senior Editor Carissa Bell. Guys, I want to get into the news with you in just a sec, but it's been a while since we've all been together in the same place like this. How are your shows going?
I'm shocked at how sort of true to life this feels like for CES. I know we're not living out of hotel rooms in Vegas, and I know we're not walking around a convention center. We're not peeing in porta potties every day, but guys, I'm tired. I know you're tired. I only just had my first food of the day at 3:45 p.m. That feels kind of like a real CES to me.
Yeah, it's just as exhausting as normal, but I'm lacking the camaraderie. I miss your company, V, and you too, Dana.
Well, Terrence,
and Chris, we haven't done CES together before, but I miss your company as well.
Yeah, this is my first one with Engadget, so I feel like I'm definitely missing out on the full experience.
You guys simply do not understand how badly I wish I could walk out of a trailer right now and walk like the half a mile to the pepper mill and just eat an entire country fried steak by myself. But that will unfortunately have to wait until CES goes physical again at some point. We do now, though, want to go into some of the day's announcements. And if yesterday was the day we really saw TVs and smart home technology really kind of take the stage, today kind of feels like that moment for chips and laptops. We've had quite a few big announcements today, maybe the biggest. NVIDIA announcing that its new RTX series high-end mobile GPUs now going into laptops that'll be available starting this month. A few companies have already confirmed that they're working on RTX-grade laptops, among them Razer, Alienware by Dell, and Acer. As far as prices are concerned, what we know so far is NVIDIA has said that at the base level, if you're looking at a laptop with the RTX 3060, the sort of entry-level sort of ray tracing friendly GPU for laptops, you can expect to see prices start at about $1,000. But just so far in the announcements we've seen from these companies, we're seeing the floor hovering closer to about $1,500, which is maybe a bit more than people were willing to spend. But look at it this way. If you are one of those people, and I assume because you're watching this, you might be, you probably are well aware of how difficult it's been to get an RTX 3060, 3070, 3080 for a desktop build. So the idea of being able to buy a laptop, which some of you are probably going to do anyway with this sort of high-level graphics performance, that seems really, really powerful. I want to turn it over to you guys, and especially Terrence and Dana. What's your sense of how important these are? And more importantly, do you want this stuff? Does this appeal to you at all?
I'm not going to speak for Dana, obviously, but I'm not a big gamer. I'm always excited to see, new, faster, more powerful hardware in things. Just because I'm a guy who likes flashy, high-powered things. I have a reputation for buying laptops that are way more powerful than I absolutely need for my daily work. But at the same time, this is I don't play first person shooters. I'm not like a big PC gamer guy. So this is the sort of thing that I'm like, this isn't the stuff that I get excited about.
Got it. And Dana, where are you at with these guys?
So I'm not a gamer per se. My next laptop isn't going to be a gaming laptop, but I thought it was interesting, just as our team yesterday was talking about possible Best of CES award finalists. In this category, even just centering on chips, it did seem like collectively the companies were in different ways giving consumers everything they could possibly want. It seems like NVIDIA is taking the angle of getting its most powerful chips into a mobile form factor. But from Intel, we really saw an emphasis on thinner and lighter devices. So I think it's less that I am impressed with NVIDIA specifically and more just impressed with the variety and the degree of choice that consumers are going to have from this point forward.
Yeah, and you raise a really great point about the differences in approach. As you point out, Intel is going with a pretty pronounced focus on getting more powerful new processors into thin and light laptops. We're seeing a lot of new laptops this year with the 11th gen Core i7 series chipsets, which are pretty powerful for the sort of size and price and performance envelope. But we'll get to another laptop featuring that chipset in just a sec. Carissa, are you a gamer? Does this do anything for you?
I'm not much of a PC gamer. I do think, you kind of alluded to some of the previous GPUs from NVIDIA have been very in demand, hard to get. So I think what I'm just sort of curious to see is like if they're going, what the supply and demand will be like for these. I feel like they will be probably pretty popular. What we've seen in the past is any indication.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, especially when you consider the fact that, again, going back to sort of the desktop scenario, if you were, again, looking for the sort of desktop equivalents of these chips, the RTX 3060, 3070, 3080, for the longest time, like if you wanted to get your hands on this chip and didn't want to pay a scalper like 200 minimum % increase over the actual cost of these GPUs, you basically had to go out and buy like a pre-built system with these GPUs inside. And for some people, that's perfectly not a problem, right? Not everyone wants to sit down and go on PC Part Picker and like figure out exactly what their next rig is going to be. If they want just the best power possible for their budgets, yeah, go buy an HP or a Dell or something with the graphics card you're looking for, and you're more or less fine. I feel like that's basically what we're looking at with these guys too. Obviously, there's a big focus on gaming with these chipsets, so it's no surprise to see companies like Razer and Alienware really kind of embrace these chipsets, these technologies. I suspect they're probably, by dint of deals they've probably made with NVIDIA and their various manufacturer partners, they've probably got pretty steady supply. So for now, at least, if you're looking for really high-powered graphical performance and you don't mind sort of living with the compromises that come with getting that in a mobile device, yeah, maybe one of these new laptops might be the way to go. Speaking of laptops, I want to turn our attention really quickly to another weirdo, the Lenovo. Let me make sure I get this name right because it's a mouthful. The Lenovo Thinkbook Plus Gen 2i, which is far and away the least elegant thing I've had to say all day. But here's the cool thing about it. If you haven't seen our story, I definitely recommend you check it out. It's basically a business laptop, so not normally the kind of thing we get particularly fussed over here at Engadget. But it does have, as I mentioned, the Intel 11th Gen Core i7 chipset, comes with 16 gigs of RAM if you want it. But on the back of that screen, you do get an e-ink display, and actually a much bigger one than the one we saw in the Thinkbook Plus. The thrust of the argument here is that if you're a working professional, maybe you're too busy to like open up your laptop, you're on the phone, like you're handling some deals or whatever. You want to be able to launch productivity apps like the Office Suite or your note-taking app from the back of your computer without having to open your computer. It's a really weird concept, so I want to hear you guys weigh in. Would you ever use a dual-screen laptop with a screen like this on its back?
So V, I don't know if you're one of the people who saw this in person ahead of the show, but just how do you reconcile this being a business laptop with security implications? It's hard enough protecting the information that's on a screen facing you, and companies that make business laptops have really tackled that with different kinds of screen dimming and protecting devices. What do you do about information on a business laptop that is being broadcast and literally shared with the world in that form factor with just the screen facing out like that? How are they reconciling that?
Dana, I'm so glad you asked that question. So in complete, for the sake of full disclosure, I have not seen this particular version of the laptop. Last year, though, I did see the original Thinkbook Plus, which was same idea, just with slightly worse software for that external screen. But if the question is, how can Lenovo sort of justify making this a business machine? You can't. Like, you don't. It's not. I don't like. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I understand the ability to like do stuff without having to wait for your laptop to sort of wake up properly. But yeah, I actually hadn't thought about the privacy concerns. But and I'm sure there are tools with which one can control sort of what appears on the back of that e-ink display and when. But on the whole, yeah, even if I was in the trailer with you guys, like, I don't want you guys to see anything I'm doing. So the idea of using an e-ink screen on the back of my laptop with any kind of insight into my current workflow sounds like a nightmare.
No, I have to say that
actually thought
I'm
about.
somebody where
Go ahead, Carissa.
I was gonna say, I'm somebody where I've been generally excited to see dual screen devices, foldables, all these kind of more these different form factors that we've been seeing the last couple of years. But making a dual screen with one of them e-ink, I really just kind of don't understand what the practical use case for that is. Is it a battery consideration, or is there some other purpose that the e-ink is supposed to serve?
So as I understand it, yeah, battery is part of the equation here. So as I mentioned, you can sort of run certain apps from the outside of the laptop when it's closed on that e-ink display. And I think you're rated for between 17 and 20 hours of pretty continued use if you're just using that e-ink display, if for whatever reason your workflow, your setup kind of allows for that. That's obviously not going to be the case for everyone, but if you can sort of swing that, yeah, you're looking at considerably better battery life. But I want to throw it over to Terrence. Where are you on this laptop?
Similar to you, I hadn't actually thought about the privacy implications of that, which also confuses me, Dana. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm with everybody else here in that I just don't quite understand it as a business machine. I thought last year's model, the Thinkbook Plus, was theoretically a consumer-oriented device. The whole pitch was around it being basically when you're not actively using it, can kind of be like an Echo Show, right? That was the whole idea.
Yeah, that was
and I guess
for sure.
that kind of makes sense, like for a home machine. But the use case, the selling point doesn't seem quite as clear to me as a business machine.
It's interesting you bring that up because if you look at sort of Lenovo's trajectory with this laptop from last year to this year, yeah, they kind of stripped out a lot of the fun stuff. Like Alexa, I mean, I've not used this thing, but Alexa is pretty clearly visible in many of the images Lenovo has shared. So Alexa is there to some extent. One thing I do want to point out, last year's model, I believe, had the Kindle app preloaded, and you could read Kindle books on the back of your laptop if you wanted to. And I believe that's gone. There is no mention of that anywhere. So you're right. It does seem like the consumer benefits that we did see last year have sort of been eroded away. And whether or not that works out to Lenovo's benefit remains to be seen. But I think it's a loss. I think it's a little more practical and a little less weird than it used to be. And who wants that stuff? We could go on about computers all day, but I do want to turn our attention really quickly over to the many automotive announcements that are made at CES. If you've been watching the show for the last few years, you'll have seen car makers and sort of technology companies that feed into car makers really taking up a much larger proportion of what happens at the show. And that's definitely still true this year. A couple of things I want to just run through very quickly. GM has announced a new business unit called BrightDrop, which is doing electric vehicles, but specifically for deliveries and inventory management. So if you're used to seeing your UPS or your FedEx truck, a diesel truck pull up to your house or apartment building with a bunch of boxes for you, as I'm sure all of us are since we review so many things, that could eventually be replaced by a decently ranged electric vehicle. The one GM is looking at here has a carrying capacity of about 2,200 pounds, and I believe can hold up to about 600 square inches of cargo. There's a lot of room in there. I think I've got that figure wrong, but point is, sort of building up new technologies to complete that last mile, right, from a delivery facility to your home could be really beneficial in the long term from an environmental perspective, and I'd love to see more of that. We've also got some news on GM's new electric vehicles, the Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV, the electric utility vehicle, which is, I guess, just a crossover, but with an electric motor. One of the big things about the Bolt EUV is that it has GM's Super Cruise sort of autonomous driving system. It's not fully autonomous. You still have to sort of pay attention, but it does kind of help keep you in lanes, and more importantly, requires that the driver be paying attention to what's going on to make sure that the sort of automated systems work correctly. We've now gotten to the point where automated driving systems are fairly common, and I'm just curious, going around the table, has anyone experienced one? And if so, what were your experiences like?
Shall I start this off?
Please.
I have not been in an autonomous driving car. I wish I would have been. The best I've got is my current car has like lane assist. But I will tell you, I will be among the first to like line up and buy a like reasonably priced consumer facing self-driving car. Like I'm 100% on board for that. And I very much want one very, very badly. I think, I don't know, Carissa, do you drive?
I do. I don't have a car, but I drive occasionally.
Okay. And I know, Dana, you do not have a car. Do you have a license?
I don't. I have a license, I haven't driven since I took my driving exam, but that's a story for another day. But I remember, I forget what CES it was. I don't remember if it was last year or 3 years ago, but did any of you guys take any of the, avail yourselves of the self-driving lift rides that were being piloted in Vegas at the time? Because I do think I've been in a self-driving car, and I think that was when and where it happened.
I don't think
they were kind
of
hard to get a hold of.
That's very true.
Yeah, I remember we spent.
Go ahead, Carissa.
I remember we spent quite a bit of time trying to get one, and a few of my colleagues at the time were able to nail one down, and but I think they were sort of in demand, if I remember.
And that really does kind of feel like the crux of the autonomous driving situation right now, right? It's being very widely talked about. People have already formed opinions about them, but I feel like it's fair to say that the vast majority of people have still not experienced what it's like to be in one of these things. And until that starts to change, until the momentum starts to shift in the favor of people experiencing self-driving vehicles, yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to sort of wrap their heads around sort of the real benefits, at least as far as safety is concerned, because Terrence, I love you, man. Like, please don't get in the self-driving car. Like, you'd probably be fine, but I do not want to chance that.
I mean, here's what I'll say is me in a self-driving car is probably safer than me behind the wheel of a car.
Oh, actually, that is true. You once told me a really scary story about you at a hot air balloon festival in New Jersey that just went badly for everybody.
Yeah. For those who don't know me personally, I have a little, what we might call a rage issue, and sometimes that carries over to the road. So if I can take me out of the equation when it comes to driving, I very much want to do it. And joking aside, I do find driving very stressful. It is something that I don't enjoy. I do it because I have to do it. And so, again, honestly, removing me from that equation is a thing that I very much look forward to. It's the kind of thing that gives me anxiety. So, like, if I can just let a computer drive for me and I don't have to worry about it, then I'm 100% on board.
Man, that is 100%. Oh, sorry. Please.
I think we're a weird sample population because we are each an urban center. So I would not trust a self-driving car with New York City drivers. I don't know how the drivers are in San Francisco, specifically Carissa, but I feel like California has been famed at one point or another for its collective road rage. But I would trust a self-driving car in, I don't know, some suburb somewhere. I would trust it to take me to, where is my subconscious going to take me? To a Friendly's off the highway, right? Like, I think a self-driving car can do that. It can drive probably on highways. I would trust it more on a highway than I would on a city street. I can trust it around a parking lot. I just don't think the places where you and I are as well cut out for it. But I also think that the places where you and I are have so many better options in terms of public transit.
Maybe not you mentioned that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying because a lot of the companies that are working on self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles have a lot of their test vehicles in and around San Francisco. So it's very common to see, these cars driving around the city. And I think, it's funny because they're often, I think, a frustration for regular drivers because they're not really good at kind of like following those sort of unspoken norms that like a lot of city drivers do, like moving around double parked cars and just, these little things that people who drive in cities get very used to doing. And autonomous vehicles aren't very good at that. Self-driving cars aren't very good at that right now. So I think that's something that actually a lot of people in San Francisco have experienced and been frustrated with.
having experience driving in San Francisco and just sort of seeing other people driving in San Francisco, please put everyone in a self-driving car. Everyone's bad at it. I do not like the way they handle things. I'm from New Jersey. We're very effective drivers despite what our reputation is, and I stand by that. Oh, come on, man. Anyway, we've got about 10 minutes before we kick it off to the next conversation. But I do want to take a little time to walk through some of our sort of best of CES choices. If you're not aware, Engadget is hosting for I don't even know how many times now the official Best of CES Awards, and we've just published the full list of our finalists on Engadget.com. So if you want to see what we liked, please go check it out. We're also taking solicitations for the People's Choice Awards. So if there's a bit of technology that you are very passionate about, you find it very interesting, that isn't super well represented in our list, we want to know about it, you can find all the details on Engadget.com. But guys, we've got a pretty interesting list of things on our nominees here, and I got to start with the Vanguard Industries emotional support gerbil. It's called the Mothman, but I think we've decided it's a gerbil with AI feelings. What do we do with this? Dana is just tremendously enjoying herself right now.
Well, I think it's adorable.
Why a gerbil? Are we ever going to know why a gerbil?
I feel like it's roughly gerbil sized. No? Maybe?
No, that's way bigger than a gerbil. That's more like a chinchilla. Or maybe a guinea pig.
How did you guys both go to Chinchilla at the same time? That's wild. So that raises an interesting point. Terrence and Carissa, I believe you're the only two people on this call who have animals. Is that correct?
I do. I have many animals.
Okay, so this is an AI powered chinchilla that allegedly has what they would refer to in very loose terms as feelings. So it can sort of react to moods. It can sort of reacts in different ways, and it shudders and stuff. Would you ever consider getting something like this to supplement your current pet owning life?
I don't think.
Go ahead, Carissa. Sorry.
I don't think anything is. If you have an actual real life pet, I don't think one of these can really maybe beat that experience. I think most pet owners would probably agree.
Yeah, but look at this.
But that's the thing is, like, a lot of people can't have pets, or there's a lot of barriers for a lot of folks, a lot of kids who would love pets, and I think if you have something that kind of approximates that experience and you can kind of get that emotional feedback, probably for children, maybe it would help you, learn empathy or, some of these other things benefits that a lot of like pet owners might get. And if it makes, I see it as more of like opening up an experience that might not be available to everyone.
Terrence, thoughts as a pet man?
I was going to say, just building off that real quick, I think that opening up the experience thing to people who might not be able to have it is the important part of it. This is a $400 robot. It is very cute, but, I think to think of it like a pet, like you would your cat, is the wrong way to go about it. It is, they refer to it as an emotional support pet. It's for therapy. I have downstairs a Gerbil right now, and that is this small like robot toy pet for kids, and the whole idea is that it also tries to express emotion. It's not AI powered. It doesn't like really react that well, but if you turn it upside down, it has a small motor in it, and it beats like its heart is racing, and it gets upset, and you have to pet it and calm it and soothe it down. And for children who maybe are somewhere on the autism spectrum or something, where learning that empathy is very important, this provides a predictable way to get exposed to that. Because you can't just hand a kid a dog or a cat and know immediately how that animal is going to respond to them. So for certain situations, this is a much more appropriate way to kind of learn about that level of interaction and caring.
Terrence O'Brien, as usual, the voice of reason around these parts. I want to turn our attention quickly to, the Vanguard Industries Mufflin, the emotional support gerbil, as we have taken to calling it around Engadget. That's a finalist for the best robot/drone category. Moving on to a finalist for best digital health/fitness is the Omron connected blood pressure monitor. And this, I had no sort of part in picking this particular product, but it does sort of ring true for me because my mom was a nurse for 30 years, and even now, when I get on Zoom with her and my dad, there's always like a blood pressure cuff in the background somewhere. She's either just taken my dad's blood pressure or is about to. So having something like this, which basically handles the blood pressure data collection and then also sort of sends that data to healthcare professionals, seems like something my family could personally benefit. And I'd love to hear if any of you guys sort of fall in the same camp.
I mean, I just want to say for our listeners and our viewers that every year the digital health and fitness category is one of the toughest for us to pick. I think it's precisely because we're trying to be level-headed and not overcredulous. And so you do have a lot of companies making lofty claims, which I think even the best reporters would need to be skeptical of and would have trouble verifying. So there's a lot of claims out there that we didn't even want to elevate in this category. I think we were excited about this Omron device, both in terms of concept, but it is a company that has appeared at CES before, that has made our best of lists before. It is a company that feels like more of a known entity in a space where there is a lot of vaporware and just a lot of smoke and a lot of promises not necessarily kept.
Yeah, that's a great point. We really do have to tread care. I mean, obviously, we tread carefully with all of our choices for the best of CES. We do take this responsibility very seriously. But with health, maybe more than any other, right? Like there comes the need for sort of due diligence and for groundwork that I personally happen to think we're very good at, and I feel is reflected well in the fact that, as you point out, Omron, very well-known company. They have a long legacy in sort of health technology, and they've proven themselves, I think, fair to say, over the years to be a fairly reliable source of new devices that could potentially help people in ways different from what they were expecting. I do want to get a little selfish and now turn to the best of mobile category, which is one of mine. Two things really quickly spring to mind. The LG Rollable, which we did see for the briefest of glimpses yesterday. And I know it might seem a little strange to sort of look at something like this, which again sort of appeared in the intro and outro of the LG press conference for like 10 seconds tops. To think of that as a potential finalist for Best of CES might seem a little hasty, but we have since confirmed, among other things, it will be called the Rollable, and we have confirmed that it is coming this year. LG has confirmed that. So this is not vaporware. This is not a product that sort of gets flashed in a press conference and then just disappears into the mist for another few years. This is a real product. It's coming this year, and I think the potential that the Rollable concept has compared to a foldable, right? Because you don't have to worry about the crease. You do get a full-size smartphone screen. If you're familiar with the Galaxy Z Fold 2, you'll know that it has like a very tall, very narrow external display, and you open it up and get sort of the inside screen with the crease, which is, again, not really an issue. With something like a Rollable, you get that big outside screen. That's just your phone, but it becomes a small tablet when you want to. And really quickly, we've got a few minutes left. Just quick around the table, starting with you, Dana. Would you consider using a Rollable as your daily device?
No, but I'm also I haven't been sold on foldables yet either. I mean, I would just say, not to keep throwing questions back to you, but remember when you reviewed the first foldables, there were all these problems with the creases, like where the crease was on the device, and also like, did the crease as a design function, engineering function, introduce vulnerabilities in terms of like the ability for dirt and debris to get in? I guess my question for you is like, if I'm going to pick a weird device, is the Rollable less likely to break?
That's a question I don't think anyone is particularly well equipped to answer right now, but you do raise a great point. I mean, just by dint of having motors and sort of more moving parts inside of a phone as opposed to just a hinge that sort of moves in fairly predictable ways, yeah, you're adding complexity to a system that obviously adds potential for failure. I will say, though, that, I mean, we have not sort of landed anywhere. We don't know if this is going to win. That remains to be seen. But ultimately, I think LG's sort of experience in rollables, especially with respect to its TVs, maybe kind of gave it a leg up compared to companies like TCL and Oppo, who are also working on similar concepts. Really quickly, we're just about out of time. I want to thank everyone for joining. It's been a blast. It's just nice to see you guys again. I really appreciate it. Coming up next, we have Sherlyn Lowe. She's got a panel on home fitness tech to keep us healthy in 2021. That's with Jim Barr, the CEO of Nautilus, and Chris Stadler, the Chief Marketing Officer at Tonal. And as mentioned, we are running the official Best of CES Awards. To learn more about our Best of CES finalists, be sure to check out Engadget.com. And to just a quick plea to anyone out there watching, please join us tomorrow for our actual official Best of CES 2021 Awards. That begins at 4:30 Eastern. 1:30 Pacific. That'll be hosted by myself and reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe. It's going to be a good time. Sherlyn and I just sort of bounce off each other, and we're going to talk about a lot of cool products and give out some cool awards. I wish I had the trophy with me, actually. It's upstairs, but it does look... All right, we're now going to turn it over to Sherlyn Lowe. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.